recorded.
Hello, how are you? This is Rudy Lozano, broker for Premier Realty Group Platinum. Today, as a consequence of the NAR settlement, we're going to take a deep dive into the Texas real estate contract, specifically catering to FHA financing. When the market's great, most contracts are conventional. When the market is challenged, FHA usually or VA comes in to save the day. Folks right now, they're dealing with the inflation. Everything's abnormally expensive. And you see it at the grocery store, at the gas pump, as well as rates are abnormally high. I do want to start off this session by building on what we've been doing for the last few weeks and what we covered yesterday, and then how it's going to hopefully play out in the near future based on the compensation. So you guys should have gotten a package. It's a lot of pages. When you're doing your buyer's orientation, it's important that you cover your role and your purpose, and outline clearly for your client what you do. The back end of the package has a lot of helpful information. First and foremost, the information about brokerage services, where you specifically disclose who you represent in the transaction. Okay, your buyer client needs to understand that they're not a prospect. With the new rules, there's no middle ground. You either represent the seller through an exclusive right to list, or you represent the buyer, whether you use their short form because you just met him at an open house, or you use the long form because it's somebody that you know because they're part of your sphere of influence or they were referred to you. What all tasks and activities and responsibilities and duties that you're needing to uphold. I'm just going to cover some real quick, starting with information about brokerage services, right? Who you represent in the transaction, as well as just general information. They are on your checklist. FHA does require for you guys to disclose to them, for your protection, get a home inspection. Okay. I have gone as far as telling people, even when you pay cash, you must always have a title policy. You must always have a survey, even if it's raw land, because you need to clearly identify what you're purchasing. But certainly, housing and urban development through FHA requires, whether it's on the real estate side or on the mortgage side, for them to sign a disclosure called for your protection, get a home inspection. Furthermore, you also want to talk to them about the potential of certain stuff happening. It's for your information. Every property is different. Different sides of the city are different. There's, once again, guys, you guys are with PRG Platinum. I spent thousands of dollars for you guys to have access to the Dallas market, to Houston, Corpus, Rockport, Del Rigo, Eagle Pass, Laredo, El Paso. There are communities in Houston that do belong to a MUD district, okay, as well as in Austin, a utility district. They have the right to know that they have another expense because they decided to buy in that community before you go under contract, okay? As well as there's other disclosures that you probably need to cover before you write them up, so that way you realize how much information and knowledge you need to know, and disclosures that you guys need to provide to them, so that way they can make an informed decision. Okay. Texas real estate notice concerning hazards or deficiencies. That's the purpose of getting a home inspection, as well as studying the seller's disclosure. There's also a disclosure having to do with wire fraud. There's a lot of fraud going on. When you guys are going to even coordinate financing, insurance, home service plan, vendors. Okay, you're not that HGTV realtor that they portray on TV, where you pick up the client, you start walking houses immediately. They never cover the financing. They rarely cover the repairs, right? So once again, outline your journey. Let them know that it's not as easy as it's portrayed on TV. It's not. Once again, wire fraud. Do not hate. Thank you for reaching out to me. I'm going to be your realtor. I appreciate that you called me, or I met you, or somebody referred you. But one of the things that I'm responsible for is to protect your interest from beginning to end and coordinate certain things for you. So I will tell you that if you're don't listen to your friends and family. I am your trusted advisor. Okay. Same thing with your doctor and attorney and your financial planner. You need to listen to me. Okay. So at the end of the day, it's a journey. There's a lot of information that's going to be shared, but certainly protecting your identity, protecting your credit is one of them. So the people that I work with are local. PRG Platinum offers an in-house lender, which we have Nancy and Melissa and Keith as part of our team on the financing side, and Christina, Alejandra on the insurance side. You guys have a full team of people, guys. And we have over 30 notaries for you guys here. That if a closing needs to happen here, because now we have all these title companies from out of the city, right? And they don't have anywhere to close them. All of a sudden, they're closing, at their job or at a kitchen table. But that notary shows up and goes, just sign, just sign. When your closing happens here, I cannot function as the notary. But I used to be a closer for housing and urban development. Closing, I was responsible for 36 counties. I would have 8 to 12 closings on any given day. Okay, I know those documents backwards and forwards. Okay, so I cannot function as the notary, but I'll be more than happy to sit down with them and go in detail, or as much detail as I need to, to conduct your closing and get them in and get them out within an hour and 15 minutes. Okay, so once again, use your resources, sell your resources, add value. Everybody that works in this office at 3415 Paisanos Parkway is part of your team. Anybody walking around, whoever's at the coffee pot, okay? Especially if they're part of my admin staff, okay? So we're here to help you guys. So once again, you need to talk about different things. Hey, I'm gonna set you up with a local lender, our in-house lender, or whatever, your lender of choice, and we need to get you pre-qualified. The moment that I connect you with somebody, when they pull your credit, the credit bureau sells trigger leads. The moment that your credit is pulled, it's kind of like when you buy a car. All of a sudden, you get everybody calling you within a $500-mile radius, wanting to sell you a car. Well, it happens to be the same way in mortgage. Okay, they might not know your credit score and how much money you make, but they sold the fact that you're purchasing a property. Do not talk to people that you do not know, that you were not referred to. Let people know who is your team. Set expectations accordingly, so that way the journey is the least turbulent. So once again, setting up with somebody on the financing piece becomes ever so important, guys, because when you're presenting your offer and you're dealing with somebody from an out-of-state mortgage company or a big lender, most listing agents that have experience, they weed out offers based on your pre-approval. Do you have a pre-qualification? I think I can do the loan, or a pre-approval, or a good funds letter if you're paying cash. Because that's one of the first things that you have to do, apart from making them your client. But if you're going to go out and show property, you need to make sure that you're showing property to people that actually can buy. Okay, so you setting them up with your preferred lender becomes ever so crucial, because you need to know how to structure that deal, right? So once again, information about wire fraud. It's happening, guys. People are stealing identities. They're stealing your Facebook account. They're asking your friends and family to send them money because they're thinking that you're somewhere else, right? So once again, tell people that you're going to help them through the journey and through the process. That's one of the things that you do. Okay. Um, General information about to buyers and sellers. This form is form TXR 1506. It's already on our checklist, guys. If you don't know this form from beginning to end, and it starts with annexation, covers appraisals, brokers, compensation, environmental concerns, expansive soils, okay? And along with the expansive soils, guess what? There's also a disclosure on here about addendum for authorizing a hydrostatic test. You want to test the plumbing as part of your home inspection, so that way you can determine if there's issues with the foundation. Because in Texas, we have expansive soils. There's not a property in the city of San Antonio and the surrounding area that isn't impacted by this extreme weather. So set the pace. The form goes on to talk about FIRPTA, FIRPTA, or however it's pronounced. That's for foreign investors. And 50% of the inventory a year ago in the last few years has involved investors, whether they were fix and flip, long-term, fix and hold, or just folks wanting to take the money out of the country and buy a second home in San Antonio. You need to know the laws and what the process and the procedures are. You're going to walk them through that if they're one of those buyers. Knowing about flood hazards, historical district, guys. Historical districts, we have several of them. There's a designation that if you're going to ponder in that area, step it up. Be the professional if you like working with historical properties. They're not regular homes. Inspections, repairs, and walkthroughs. HOAs, mineral interests, multiple listing services, permits. Let's talk about permits. As part of many wholesalers and many investors think that they do not have to disclose. That is not correct. They are not exempt. They're the ones that are doing the improvements. They're the ones that are required to register required permits if they're going to touch the foundation, the electrical, the plumbing, install HVAC, change out the water heater, change out the roof. You need a roof permit, guys, if you're in the city, because they want to make sure that you're going to dispose of that material at one of the dumps, not off, drive it into the country kind of thing. Okay. Mineral rights, mineral interests, property insurance. I could sit here and talk about insurance all day long, guys. Insurance is expensive. It's been impacted by inflation as well. When the economy worsens, guess what happens? We start seeing more fraud. More people file a claim on their roof and don't replace the roof. Right now, folks are keeping the money because they're struggling. So it becomes your job to negotiate, to ask as part of your contract, the fact that you're needing an insurability letter. Ask nicely. Well, that involves the seller filing a claim. And two things will happen. You'll get an insurability letter telling you the economic life of the roof, that the impact of that recent hail doesn't warrant replacement, or you will get your roof replaced. So ask for an insurability letter as part of your negotiations when you're going through your option, okay? That requires the seller to file a claim. So one of two things will happen. You'll either get the letter, no, we're not replacing it because it doesn't need replacement, it doesn't warrant replacement, and you're documenting that that's not going to be a pre-existing issue for your buyer, okay? Doesn't it start to sound like the insurance business or the medical field, right? Pre-existing. Okay. So once again, that's one of the things that you do. I'm going to negotiate repairs for you. because I have the experience and I know what could happen because I own a home myself. This is what I do for a living. Because once again, how much does a roof cost these days? $16,000 to $25,000 easy. Okay. Um, Property values, residential service contracts, restrictions on property, uh, school boundaries, septic tanks, sex offenders and criminal activity, statutory tax districts, surveillance, surveys. Let's talk about the survey. There's many times where, especially in old San Antonio, where there's no fencing and such. All of a sudden, there's disputes that can arise when somebody sells, thinking that that property belonged to them. So always get a survey, whether it be cash or financing is involved, or even seller financing. Tax proration, termination of option, title insurance, and abstract of title. Always obtain title insurance on any real estate transaction. It diminishes the risk to your license. Imagine sitting in front of the real estate commission or an ethics committee, whether it be at TAR or locally. Now, Mr. Seller, you represented the buyer. What were you thinking that telling your buyer that, oh, that because they were paying cash, that a title policy wasn't required? Imagine being in that position, right? So once again, to function as a fiduciary is to take care of other people, whether they be children or the elderly or just a consumer. Okay, we have to protect the consumer first, other people's interests first before our own. And then, of course, wire fraud. So, guys, this is one of my favorite forms: general information and notice to buyers and sellers. When you do your listing presentation to take on a listing, this outlines all of your roles. It's what, how many pages? 5 pages of stuff that you're responsible for to share with your seller or your buyer. And then there's a form covering insurance alone, about property insurance and buyers, for buyers and sellers. There's also one having to do with endangered species and wetlands. For our folks that are in Houston or in Corpus, or in the Rockport area, that has to be disclosed. Even in my community, there's a 2 lots. They're gorgeous. They can't build on them. Each lot's worth $100,000, $200,000 to the developer. Well, they can't build on those 2 lots because there's a bat cave right under, and it's considered an endangered species. Okay. So there is a disclosure that it's just a consumer disclosure to your buyer about if they have a complaint against their agent or their brokers, that they can log on to TREC, what number to reach out, and it's issued by the Texas Real Estate Commission. And then, guys, part of your listing presentation and your buyer's presentation, have the code of ethics. It's pages and pages, outlines everything. It is, I want to say it's 8 pages. There's tons of articles, but it's tons of information. Hey, this is a profession. We have to go through a federal background check. You can't be involved in acts of moral turpitude. There's folks that, smoked a joint when they were 18 years old. Now they're in their 50s trying to get licenses. And all of a sudden, if you have a felony or did something that you shouldn't have done, anything that might involve moral turpitude or once again, I don't determine who gets a license or not, but just know that when you're a realtor and you're a fiduciary licensed by the Texas Real Estate Commission, and it's midnight and you're around the wrong crowd, or you're involved in anything and you're not who you normally are during regular business hours, that and something bad happens to you and you get involved in something that normally you wouldn't be, all of a sudden you're brought into something that escapes you and all of a sudden you get yourself in trouble, you know, that has to be reported to TREC, whether it's a DWI, or you slapped your husband or your wife or whatever, or your kid, or you ran over somebody's dog. I mean, I don't know. Um, if it's a misdemeanor and above, it has to be reported to. It is your fiduciary duty to let the real estate commission know that you're involved in something. Okay, so and they will decide whether you keep your license or not. Okay, so not just, even though we have 14,000 realtors in San Antonio, 200 in our office, 14 in the city and the surrounding areas. Okay, 115,000 nationwide and 1.8 million nationwide. Not just anybody can be a realtor. There's over 270 million people in the United States. Okay, so almost 2 million realtors isn't a whole lot. Okay, so once again, your code of ethics are important. You need to sell value of what you do in your profession when you're working with a prospect that you need to convert immediately into a client. Okay, so I'm going to start with the contract now. I can't emphasize enough that I was told yesterday that we have known that when NAR decided to settle the lawsuit, they needed to get on some campaign to educate realtors. And they started by, and they're still offering it, and they're going to offer through the end of the year, about everybody becoming a buyer, taking the ABR class, accredited buyer's rep specialist. Okay, there is a designation or certification for it. All that means is that you're taking people on as a client, because once again, there's no sub agency. Somebody can't just be treated as a consumer or a prospect. You either represent the buyer or you represent the seller. Okay, so what ends up happening is that they went on this campaign to educate realtors that they needed to create a client relationship buyer's agency. However, the problem that I'm having here lately, and I was just informed recently, that what they're teaching is the fact that whoever controls the listing controls the gold. Yes, because normally listing agents, especially if they've been in the business for a long time, they're not out showing property after 6, and they're not showing property on Saturday, Sunday. It's a young person entering the business, or somebody new to the business. Doesn't have to be a young person. Somebody new to the business that wants to hustle, that wants to learn the business, that's shadowing somebody, that's working extensive hours, after hours, and weekends and national holidays and on Sundays, but no doubt about it, it's organic. There's a lot of moving parts, and I think it is not intelligent. I'm disappointed, to say the least, that NAR has instructed and mobilized all of these people to teach people about buyer's agency when the market is the way that it is. Had this been 2 years ago, I'd be concerned. But right now, guys, all of the economic reports dictate that we have a horrible economy. Properties aren't moving. People aren't building homes. I mean, there's folks that will always move regardless of the marketplace, but people are being very strategic. People are struggling to, once again, buy groceries, pay their utility bills. It's expensive. Rates are still high. They're not transitioning down as quickly as they went up. So once again, for somebody to be instructed, and there's firms like Open Door that have already established their policy of they're not going to pay buyers agents. They're giving a 2.65 credit to the buyer, but no compensation. Well, guess what's going to happen to Open Door inventory? You guys control that. You guys control it. Do not send a random list. If you don't have time to look at what inventory you're exposing your client to, what are you doing? You need to go through it. If, hey, there's 15 properties, you need to click on every property. You need to make sure that that commission is being disclosed. If it's not being disclosed, you need to pick up the phone, send a text, log on to their website, and find out what the commission is. The agent should not be privileged to your qualified buyer. Why would you want to do that? Don't do it. You want to teach somebody a lesson? Let the property sit there. It's kind of like when you take on a listing. Mr. Seller, if you don't want to pay but buyer's compensation, you're expecting me to sell your property and be doing open houses every day. I can't cooperate with my 14,000 associates for me to be able to sell your home. You're setting the expectation for failure. You are. Don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to your brokerage. Don't do it to anybody that you need to form a partnership for the benefit of yourself, that seller, that buyer. It's all organic, guys. So by not compensating the buyer's agent and taking on the philosophy, I'm going to keep all the commission. You can keep all the commission. What, 3%? Maybe 6%? But then you're not going to share it with a cooperating broker? Well, in 30 days or in 60 days, when they need to relocate to a different state or to a different school district, and you don't even have one buyer walking through the door, no, zero compensation, no 1% commission. Man, there's properties that sit and they're offering 2.5. Try offering $1. Try offering 0. Good luck. So on this specific example, I'm actually using my own listing, guys. There's a gentleman that unfortunately, due to a heat stroke or whatever, he passed on like maybe 3 weeks ago. So I stepped in to take over the listing with the commitment that once it closed, that we would give the compensation to the widow. So if you know anybody in the Northwest looking to purchase a home, the subject property is 9740 Braun Ready? Click whenever you're ready. Can you tell me where I ended up?
You just finished offer bonus offers on the property because it doesn't move and offer of course price reduction, then you went to offer bonuses
And closing costs. And closing
yeah,
costs.
those
Mhm.
more.
Okay. Hey guys, so sorry. We had a break in the internet and stuff. So once again, compensation agreement between brokers. Make sure that before exposing your client, it's not steering if you're outlining how you're going to conduct business. So like I said, that conversation when you're doing your buyer's orientation, covering all the miscellaneous disclosures and the code of ethics and your buyer's representation agreement, when you're when you get to the compensation part, where you're giving them options and you're asking them that if the compensation had to be paid by them, if and because the seller wasn't offering it, if they wanted to be exposed to those properties. Remember, you haven't talked about a zip code or a school district or a geographical area as of yet. So it is not steering. You are dictating, okay, I'm an attorney. I specialize in family law. You do not specialize in malpractice and everything else. You have the right to dictate. You're referring them somewhere else. But in this case, you do real estate and you do buyer's agency and you service the San Antonio area and the surrounding area, San Antonio and the surrounding area, and if they want to be exposed to property where they're going to be responsible for the compensation, and from the start they're telling you, no, well, I can't pay you. At that moment, you need to make a business decision. But if you ask the question strategically and intelligently, and you've already gotten them with your lender, they're already pre-qualified, and they're telling you they have income, assets, and credit. They don't have to divulge to you personal information, but you can ask the right questions. Is this client, I'm needing to determine, because, I refer them to you. Can you tell me if this client can perform? Does he have sufficient income? Does he have the credit? And does he have sufficient money to cover down payment, closing costs, and my compensation? It's a yes or a no. And if you get a lender that won't answer the question, you need to change lenders. You need to rethink who's on your team. Okay? Because if you don't bring that person business, they can't stay in business either. Okay? So once again, you have the right to ask enough questions, because I get it all the time. I'm a lender, guys. I've been in the mortgage business in banking since 1995. But when the right realtors call me, they ask me those questions. Absolutely. My client's elite. They're already putting 20% down. They have income, assets, credit, enough to cover the down payment, the closing costs, and the spread. Because my client already told me, Rudy, I want this property. I not only text the agent, call the agent, email my pre-approval. When you start to compete, guys, people are okay you disclosing certain things. I mean, get their permission, of course. But at the end of the day, you have the right to dictate who you're going to conduct business with. Not everybody has the right not everybody should have access to you, and not everybody will have the privilege to work for you. Okay? It is not a right. They're not entitled to that. It is a privilege to work for you, because what are you giving up? You're giving up staying in your air-conditioned home, spending time with your family and friends, to go help their family accomplish their goals and dreams, and to transition them, to ensure that it's not a turbulent process. Because what's the alternative? Go work for that agent that will charge you 1%, that will never return your phone calls, will never return your emails, that doesn't work after 5, doesn't work on Saturday and Sunday or national holidays. By the time that he calls you back or she calls you back, the house is no longer even available. Because remember, guys, no doubt about it, the cream puffs are still moving. A lot of new home inventory is still moving. And you realize what's going on when you see the new home market, where I get them every day, guys. We just slashed our prices. We're offering 4, 5, 6% commission. We're paying, all closing costs, buy downs and everything, and guaranteeing a 3.9 and a 4.9 interest rate. What makes a listing agent think that they're doing their seller client justice by not compensating a buyer's agent who has their client in their air-conditioned vehicle, and the buyer's agent is going to dictate the journey for the day? And guess what you're doing? You already, if you're a smart realtor and you want to stay in this business, you already know that the 7 or the 10 homes that you're going to go to is going to keep you in business, right? It's going to keep you in business because nobody works for free. And it will allow you to continue to stay in business well into the future. Realtors are very smart. They're very resilient. We have seen it in this market and previous markets and whatever. It doesn't matter. There's agents that will not show a property, have not been showing property if the compensation is less than 3. Because guess what, guys? You always, to all of your decisions, you always want to determine highest and best use of your time, money, and efforts, but you always want to apply the law of substitution to all of your decisions, personally and business-wise. Why would I go show a property where the compensation is 2% when I could easily just change gears and take them somewhere where compensation's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7? Okay. So give your buyers a good orientation of what you're going to do for them and where they're going to end up to be able to, for you to help them accomplish their family's goals and dreams. Okay.
Because at this point, it's not so much, I mean, yes, it is about our compensation, but it's also about money coming out of your buyer's pocket.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that is the important thing. We're working with buyers, we got to protect, how much money is coming out of their pocket too. So if they choose not to work with an agent that is not paying us compensation, then that's their choice.
Regardless of background, regardless of industry, especially in this one specifically, because we're going through a lot of changes. But I mean, for anybody that has taken an economics class, you will see principles of supply and demand in full throttle. Okay, I can't supply you with my buyer, right, when I could take them somewhere else. The law of substitution. Once again, all of a sudden, agents are very resilient, very strategic, and all of a sudden, listings that are not offering 3% at least compensation, they're going to sit for a long period of time where the seller is going to be upset with the listing agent for being a weak agent, because if you can't sell the fact that you need an army to help that seller client transition out of the other side of town or out of state, and you think you're going to take on a listing at 3% when we're the 7th largest city in the nation, and you're going to shut out 14,000 other team players, don't be so greedy. If you don't have the resources to negotiate and do your seller justice, you're better off walking away from the table. I'm so sorry, Mr. Seller, I can't take on that listing. I'm flattered that you think that I could sell your home, but the reality of it is no. I'm meeting the 200 agents that work in my office and the 14,000 other realtors that work in this city to help me bring you a qualified buyer. We're using the power of the realtor brand, and we're using the power of MLS to accomplish your life goals and dreams. Because if the house sits for 3-6 months, all of your plans are you're going to have to change your plans frequently. And you have to pay taxes and insurance and HOA and maintenance costs and insurance costs and all of that other stuff. How many times will you need to cut your yard from here to 7 months if that's what it takes, just because you didn't want to pay compensation to a buyer's agent? I don't know what they're preaching right now or teaching right now, but they're setting up a lot of people for failure who are going to take listings because they're not going to be successful. Okay. But either way, the compensation agreement between brokers becomes ever so important. Okay. You can dictate what houses you expose them to based on your interview with them. Okay. So compensation agreement between brokers. And if you notice on line item number 5, I went ahead and put 3% plus 2K bonus. Okay, it's on compensation agreement between brokers, because that's right now MLS, I think through August 16th, because it gave us a little bit more time to be fully compliant. But by August 17th, they're going to have to figure something out. The compensation will no longer be on MLS unless they're able to amend the settlement where we're able to disclose compensation. From now till August 16th, it will still be disclosed. After that, I don't know. We'll have a recap. So page 1 of the contract, FHA. If you go the buyer property line item 3, it's 3.5%, and then of course 96.5 being financed. Total sales price of 400,000. Earnest money. Do not submit an offer without your earnest money. If your client really wants the property, same thing, guys. Negotiate from a position of strength. We have realtors in this office that when they submit offers, they're not offering $500 and $1,000. They're offering 1%, 2%, and 3% earnest money. When the market starts to get crazy again, and you're submitting offers at $500 and $1,000, it took a lot for us to get to 1%. But now that we're at 1%, it's become the standard. It's your point of reference. So what ends up happening, if you normalize the fact that you're already in the $400,000 range, the down payment's already what? $14,000, 3.5. Well, if you perform, you're going to get a credit at closing. But if you're involved in a multiple offer situation because it's the cream puff, the house has been fully remodeled, they're throwing in washer, dryer, refrigerator, they updated the kitchen and the restrooms, you couldn't get it in the new home market. And oh, by the way, your brother, sister, cousin, mom, grandma lives within a 1-mile radius. Priceless. So you as an intelligent buyer's agent, what are you going to do? What can you do? Is that I'm a master negotiator, because the people that will survive this marketplace will become master negotiators. How can we secure this property? Let's offer 2% and 3% earnest money. Don't offer $50 for option. Offer $250. Right? Money is a motivator, guys, even on the other side. Because then they want to assess level of motivation. Imagine submitting an offer and it shows on a $400,000 home and you have $8,000 in earnest money or $12,000 in earnest money. Won't your offer be presented first to the seller? Right? Negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness, especially when your client is telling you, take out all the stops. This is the house. You've already been in multiple weekends showing 20 houses in 100-degree weather, and they're offering you full compensation and a bonus. Give it your best shot. Negotiate aggressively from a position of strength on behalf of your family's interests. Trust me, you'll get more referrals. The next thing is the title policy, guys. In this marketplace, seller, if you ask the seller to pay for it, they'll pay it. If you ask the seller for the existing survey, have them pay for it. And remember, guys, the T47 and the survey have to be provided within the day's outline. Let's say you throw in this case, I threw in 7 days for an existing survey. I threw in 7 days. Okay, you have to turn in, or hopefully you're already prepared, and in Associated Docs, you have the T47 and the existing survey. You need both, not just one. And if you don't have a notary, you know, there's 20 people in this office, okay? The other thing is also at least give yourself 10 days. I mean, if you're asking 7 days to be provided for an existing survey, give yourself 10 days to object to it. If you already live in a PUD, you already live in a community, you know that it's going to be residential. it doesn't get quirky unless you're on some busy street in old San Antonio or on the south side. All of a sudden, properties on North Main, San Pedro have turned into commercial, or on the south side, South Presa or whatever. Okay.
Would you still check off at buyer's expense?
You could. I mean, you could.
That's where you're showing up on this contract?
You can. I mean, it's optional. It's optional. And this marketplace, probably the seller. You know,
That's my question.
yeah. But if I'm checking off that they have an existing one, you know, because what it is that if I'm going through a counter with you, first and foremost, the T47 and the survey are already uploaded in Associated Docs. It's already been provided, so it's off the table. Now, if I don't have one of those, if I don't have it, and you still check, because there's a lot of agents that will check it even though the survey is not being provided as part of the disclosure process. But if I'm countering with you, say, hey, the seller's not going to pay a survey. I'm needing for you to change that to that's going to be taken care of by the buyer. Okay, but at the same time, guys, in this marketplace, when the market recuperates, don't ask for the survey. And that better say buyer, you know, or just flat out buyer. But in this marketplace, don't allow your transaction to die over who pays for the HOA docs at $375 and who pays for a survey. I'm going to give you an example. I had somebody that led a survey. They got into it over the survey. The seller didn't want to pay it. You know, I would have been better off paying $400 to cover the survey because they were a repeat customer, because then they ended up taking their property off the market. 2 years transpired, and then 2 years later, they went with a different agent because that deal died. Not only did you lose commission, you know, that year, but then you even lost the client. Because then if you're conversing with your client and they see that you want to be right, you don't have their interest at heart, you didn't give them, you didn't present a solution, you know, to negotiations. Okay, so here we're at wit's end. Buyer doesn't want to pay it. The seller doesn't want to pay it. I would have said, hey, buyer's agent, how about we split the survey and let's execute today, right? Problem resolution. Think outside the box. Don't let $400 or $1,000 in repair or a home service plan kill the deal. Work with the other agent. Remember, guys, I don't know what they're teaching somewhere else, but here I'm teaching cooperation. You know, we're part of each other's team. I need your seller. You need my buyer. Let's make this work. You know, it's not about who's right. Bring down the ego thing. It's okay. It's okay. You know?
I'm good with that.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I have to calm down a lot of people all the time. I'm like, calm down. Why are you upset? Hey, are you on the deed? Are you telling? I've had to ask agents, hey, you're real passionate here. Are you on the deed? Are you a principal? Okay. Well, let's talk to one another. Let's respect one another. Calm down. That way we can make better decisions. You know, I know it's 100-degree weather outside. 7 days max.
7 days max.
7 days max. Right now, when the market starts to change, it can't be more than 3. There is an agent in this office that's part of her contract, always has her pre-approval and such. She already has called the home inspector as she's submitting the offer. Hey, I'm submitting the offer. I'm expecting you're going to take it because tomorrow she even sets up the appointment or gets them to set it up, assuming that she's going to be the winning offer. Okay, that is a professional. Okay, assume you're going to be the winner. All right, because talk about motivation, right? Like, what? We're not even under contract. You're already scheduled. Yeah, I sent you a decent offer. You know, I expect to be, you know, to go under contract. That way we can move on with the process. All of a sudden, hey, let's go, right? I mean, sometimes you have to carry the other agent, and it's okay. And that's another philosophy that I want to talk to you guys too, is that everybody started new. And let me just tell you this, even people that are attorneys, a real estate attorney doesn't need a realtor. A real estate attorney doesn't need a realtor. But if you're an attorney or a doctor or whatever profession, but let's go back to attorney. If you're a malpractice attorney, what do you know about real estate? Real estate is a specialty. Even an attorney needs a realtor. So once again, guys, on the other side, we're a team. Help the other agent. If they don't have the experience, they don't have the broker support, help them finish the contract out so that way your seller can benefit from it. Don't belittle them and go, what's your problem? You don't know anything, and and I have to pay you compensation. Don't get into that conversation. Okay, because they've already delivered a highly qualified client. Help them complete the contract. Seller's disclosure, guys, make sure that you get the seller's disclosures, you analyze that, sit down with your client and review them. Just don't docu-sign them over, actually read them. Make sure it doesn't say foundation or yes, I received insurance and all of a sudden the roof isn't replaced. Okay, because then you have a problem. You have to negotiate that.
Goes without saying that you yourself study it out before you send it to them.
Absolutely.
Versus just, hey, send it.
Absolutely.
Here's the disclosure, read it over.
Okay.
And see me spotting.
Absolutely.
You've got to do that.
Review it first. You can send it to them. Hey, I have a couple of questions for the listing agent right now. They checked off something about the roof and some claim money. I'm trying to get clarification for you, but because then that lets them know that you just didn't forward it along, lets them know that you actually took the time to review them. Yes, be the professional. I mean, there's a lot of complaints even still on MLS when the property says as is, or you see it on MLS and then even on the contract it says as is. It's as is as you're entering the contract, as you're negotiating. But that means absolutely nothing, because when you get that home inspection, it's okay, either you service the air conditioner that's not working, or here's the termination, right? So either you do what I need you to do, or we can terminate and move on to another. No, don't terminate it. We'll get somebody to service the unit and get it up and running. Okay, great. Or hey, take the burglar bars off. Or hey, what's up with the mold here? I mean, once again,
you just try to use it as a tactic to intimidate.
it means absolutely nothing. It means absolutely nothing, because the seller's point of reference, if the house has been sitting for 30, 60, 90 days, and all of a sudden you have these as is comments and whatever, it means absolutely nothing, because when the seller's under contract, when the house has been sitting for months, and all of a sudden they get a laundry list of repairs, who they were and where they were 90 days ago with no offer, to all of a sudden here, all of a sudden price reduction, paying closing costs, paying you a bonus. Now they're going to do repairs. Everything's negotiable. As is means absolutely nothing, in my opinion. Closing date's important, usually 30 to 45 days. I went ahead and put on here the max amount of closing costs on paragraph 12A. I went ahead and put $24,000, 6% of the sales price. Okay, because remember the buckets, guys, as far as compensation is concerned, number one, Mr. Buyer, I'm going to need to make every attempt to get my compensation from the seller or the builder. And then the third bucket, I'm going to try to get it from Mr. in closing costs. Because if the property's been sitting for a long time, I'm going to throw in the maximum amount in there. And then you might have to cover a small difference. For those of you guys that charge 3% plus our transaction fee, or for you guys that do farm and ranch or in rural areas that charge 4% plus the transaction fee. Once again, we have agents in this office, guys, that have been charging 4 plus our transaction fee from 5 years ago or more. Okay, so for them, it's nothing changed, because they expect to get compensated, because it's what you bring to the table, right? And that I know of, I don't think we have a whole lot of HGTV realtors in our firm. Okay. Page 7. I mean, I'm not going to cover the language, because I know we have a lot of people that have experience in our office. I went ahead and notices number 21. Do not fill out this page. I don't know what's going to happen in the marketplace. I don't know if the buyer is going to want to circumvent you as an agent and go directly to the seller. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but for your protection, on notices number 21, you're best to put in care of broker. Okay. You don't need your seller to know your buyer's information, and you don't need your buyer to know your seller's information. It boils down to that. On this specific contract, I checked off third-party financing. It's a part of an HOA, sale of other property, authorizing the hydrostatic test, environmental assessment. I know in the Northwest, there's endangered species and stuff in different communities, to include my own. That addendum regarding fixtures and leases, and then of course the non-realty item addendum. Okay. If you notice on the compensation page, which is page 10 of 11.
Does it have to have every serial number?
No.
Is that a must?
No. And I'm actually going to cover that right now. But if you go to page 10 of 11, the compensation there specifically states and remember, you've already included this new form that you must include compensation agreement between brokers, and it should be a representation on the information page, which is page 10 of 11, where it mentions the broker and what role you play, whether it be the seller, the buyer, or if it was intermediary. You're going to specifically state the compensation that's already been discussed, and then furthermore, you'll have that broker agreement. 3% plus a 2K bonus. Okay. I do want to double back and once again state that the importance of the option, the delivery of the option money. Guys, if you go under contract on Monday, or let's use Friday, you have 3 days to deliver the money. If Monday's a national holiday, you have a 4th. Okay. So in the event that you have an outside investor or out-of-town buyer, nothing states that doesn't say that the agent can't deliver the option money. If you can't deliver earnest money, deliver option. It would be a lot easier, because if your buyer doesn't understand that they needed to deliver the option and earnest money, you need to at least deliver the option money, because then that gives you the opportunity to terminate during the option as under the unrestricted right to terminate. If you don't deliver that option money on the 3rd or the 4th day, your buyer doesn't have an option. Now, let's say you don't deliver the earnest money and the option. You don't have an option. You can't terminate. The only other way that you can terminate is because they didn't deliver seller's disclosure, as well as, I mean, there's a number of reasons why, but the easiest way to get him out of the contract is to get the lender. Now, obviously, there must be something going on with the financing. Get the lender to decline them, and then you can use the third-party financing. That's the easiest thing to do. Okay, but the delivery of the HOA docs and delivery of the survey and all those other things, or they're not being able to clear title. And I mean, there's like 28 or 30 something reasons that you can get out. But once again, don't do it to yourself. If you're working with a friend or a relative or an investor or whatever, an agent can cover the option. You can use your own money to convenience and to keep the client. Hey, I know that you were indisposed, you were on a plane and you got stranded in Colorado or whatever, your car broke down and whatever, and you didn't have internet. I went ahead and took care of the $75, but hey, I'm really needing for you to DocuSign this for me, because then, we have till the 7th day before 5 o'clock to terminate. Nowhere does it say that the agent can't pay for the option, to protect the client's interests. Okay. So the third-party financing addendum, guys, FHA 203B 96.5, which is the 386, 30 years at 5.99, 30 years. Always use 2% of the loan and cost, because right now costs are higher. Folks with experience want to see at least 2%, because one's not getting it done. So use 2. Furthermore, you want to at least ask for 21 days for financing approval. I mean, there's folks that can close quicker. We certainly have closed folks within 21 days, but it's those people that have good credit, one bank statement, one spouse, good credit, money in the bank, one bank statement, one spouse, one dog, one of everything, and boom, 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 you get them closed, and those are the fun files. Non-realty item addendum. May tag, first and foremost, hit spacebar and then type in the word 0. So that way there's misunderstanding. You could do 0, the number, but to be perfectly, it's just more powerful. Look how pretty it looks, right? 0. May tag, stainless steel, washer, dryer, freezer, and refrigerator, okay? Disclosure of relationship with contract provider or administrator. If you have ever, we allow at PRG Platinum for you guys to get compensated from a security company, from a water softener company, as well as a home service plan. Okay, we see the checks come in the mail, guys. It's okay. But if you collect it on one transaction, you will forever need to disclose it on any other transaction, whether you're on the listing side or the buyer side. So when you look at the form, it's not saying that you've received it. There's a potential that you might. So if you received it one time, whether you were the listing agent or the buyer's agent, you will forever need to include this form as part of your contracts because you've received one compensation from a third party. And it's okay, just know that it's going to be one more form. Addendum for sale of other property by buyer. Let's have the discussion on this. Very important, because you have people that want to get under contract and then sell their house second. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you call me in this marketplace and tell me, Rudy, I have an offer and it's subject to them selling their property in California or here in San Antonio. Well, if the property is not even on the market, properties aren't staying on the market, guys. They're staying on market for 60 and 90 days. Why would you want to do that to your seller and then tie it up? There's agent guys, once again, that do not show houses if they don't offer full compensation. Well, there's even more agents that will not show your property if it's already AFR, active rights of first refusal. Don't do it to yourself, because then many times what happens is that the agent exposes their buyer on a property, and then they have to go down in as a backup, or they have to kick out the first contract, which has to be better than the first one. And then the first contract says, oh no, we've already arranged finance. We're not losing this house. You're making the first contract already in place perform. And there are people that didn't want to go get a loan, but now all of a sudden they have to yank out money from 401k and get a gift and then do a lease back on the property they're trying to sell to be able to close on this one. Why show a property that's already committed to somebody else? So don't do it to yourself. Or worse yet, you're going to take the contract, accept the contract, the property's not even on the market. Why would you do that? Because you don't know if that buyer's agent is going to overlist the property by $100,000 and it's going to take them 6 months to get it sold or a year. Why would you do that to yourself? No. The only time that I would advise for you to take a contract subject to the sale of another property is if they're telling you, hey, we already went under contract. Here's the contract. We're closing on the 5th of August, and then we're closing on your property on the 9th. That is how to do it. The market is too volatile. Do not take, and you don't know the quality of the listing agent. I mean, in this case, if they're functioning as the buyer's agent, but you don't know the quality of the listing agent. Imagine the listing going live 30 days after you've already gone under contract and then having to extend and extend. Terrible pictures, terrible description, no marketing, no open houses. You don't know. But if somebody gives you a contract, it makes sense. Okay. Or you could at least take the risk if you don't have any other contracts. But if you don't have any contracts, don't take it if the property isn't listed or under contract. Addendum regarding fixtures and leases. In this specific property, there's an alarm. So the alarm, they're not, what happens with alarms, they can take over their contract for the alarm company. And what's going on is that people are just switching them out. I mean, because the alarm she has is hers from back then. And that's something very sensitive. So it's been my experience that folks want their own alarm company that doesn't have anything to do with the seller, right? And then they can terminate it and they'll, enough said. because there's a clause in their contract that if you sell, you're not obligated to pay the rest of the term, or you could have it transferred into your new home, right? But at the end of the day, folks change out the locks and they change out alarms. They don't want anything to do with the previous seller for the protection of their family. Okay, but it has to be disclosed. It is. It includes solar panels, propane tanks, water softeners, and security systems. Yes, those are all fixtures. So I don't know about the mother-in-law. I love mine though. And then of course the HOA, most title companies that come in here to teach this class, they want 20 days, guys. HOAs, because then if they have to pay a rush, it's expensive. It's $250 and $350. So you can't put 10 days or 15 days. Put 20 days is sufficient amount of time to order the HOA docs without paying a rush fee. Okay. Or what you need to do is already order them when you take on the listing, if you can, if your client's in a position to do so. Okay. And then of course, the fees and deposits or reserves or whatever. If the transfer fee is $375, in this marketplace, you get the seller to pay for it. Okay. In the future, you might want it to be $0. Right. And then here it is, the HOA thing again. And then these were other forms that I just covered. Does anybody have any questions? Did anybody pop back on? Okay, how many people? Does anybody have any questions?
I'm sorry, this one I remember before, but hazard or deficiencies,
It's just a general disclosure. I mean, it just advises you to do a home inspection. There could be deficiencies, and it outlines the fact that, once again, having to do with GFIs and electrical work and plumbing work and those kinds of things. Okay. The thing is that my recommendation is conduct a buyer's orientation, cover all the consumer forms, information, for your information. We're covering all of this, and we haven't even talked about the house, right? So that way they realize that it is the profession, and you're sharing all this knowledge that's relevant, to the process. So yes.
so then include this one along with like the general.
Yes. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Alrighty, guys. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to tie in the compensation to the contract. Tomorrow specifically, I'm going to cover again the NAR forms, short form, long form compensation, under what conditions. If you guys have friends or family, other business associates that are freaking out, that aren't getting the support that they need from the brokerage, have them attend my class on Wednesday. Because once again, my goal is to try to not only help agents in our office, but agents in the city to know that we really do need to stick together here. We work together for the benefit of our respective clients. And now more than ever that I know that NAR and what, the philosophy that they're taking, that, everybody's in it for their own. I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. The market will fall in place. Supply and demand principles will kick in, but no doubt about it, success occurs when preparation meets opportunity. This is going to be an opportunity for you guys to be stronger agents in the marketplace, and you guys are going to thrive, because there's a lot of folks that I know of that I see on social media that they're freaking out. They're already asking where they can go work that's not real estate related. Okay. So if you have folks, I don't have a problem if they come and see us. Okay. All righty, guys. Take care.